Oh, hey, you're sitting down. Cool. Well, I've got some great advice for new photographers on Google+.
You should take a photograph and then put a random quote that has nothing to do with the photograph. That's gold.
If you're gonna post a food picture, make sure you put nom nom nom. Make sure you put that at the end.
With love, you are possible. God, that gets me every time.
I think it's important to list your gear at the end of a post. All of it.
It's not about the gear. It's about the person holding the gear.
5D Mark III, 70-200 f2.8, ultrasonic motor on an i5 Pro X2 memory card.
I've got all kinds of circles. I have my photo gang. I have a Polaroid circle. I have one for jerks, my Dreamweaver gang. I have a trolley circle. Ding ding.
I always post a lot of photos of my cat, Whiskers. I get a lot of LOLs.
Gitzo GT3541L tripod, anniversary edition.
Want a great idea for a post? Take an HDR shot.
Everybody hates HDR.
Everybody loves HDR.
Use the word epic a lot. People love that.
Carl Zeiss 50mm, backwards for macro, duct tape around the edges.
You can't say you're eating at a Sonic. Your post should read more like dining al fresco with friends at sunset. Epic.
Start using +1 in casual conversation. I really like your shirt. Oh, +1.
You should +1 everything.
I've never seen a post I wouldn't +1.
I'd +1 that.
Do not go where the path may lead. Go instead where there is a path and leave a trail. That made me hungry for trail mix.
Get that app that makes you look like a professional photographer. It's called Instagram. It's free.
Don't waste your time making positive comments about someone's photo. What they really need is for you to tell them what's wrong with their photography. Photographers really love criticism.
If you're not very attractive, just hold the camera in front of your face for your profile picture. No one will know.
You don't have to worry about coming up with your own content. Use other people's stuff.
When in doubt, post a picture of a flower. You can't go wrong with a picture of a flower.
I plan my weekly posts. Macro Mondays, Tone Map Tuesdays, Waterfall Wednesdays, Thirsty Thursdays, Floral Friday, Catterday, Selective Color Sunday. My personal favorite.
You need to have super fans who closely monitor your Google Plus page and immediately +1 anything you post, reshare your post, and then write comments like, awesome.
If you don't have a super fan, remember, you can have 2 Gmail addresses. Stalk yourself. It's okay.
Seriously though, it's all about the amazing community of photographers here at Google+.
It's a place where photographers from around the world collaborate.
It's about getting inspiration from places I've never been, from people I've never met.
It's about sharing.
Connection.
Passion.
It's the images.
It's why I'm on Google+.
It's why I love Google+.
And that's why I'm here today in San Francisco at the first ever Google Plus Photographers Conference.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the stage photographer, author, and Google Plus Photographers Conference organizer, Scott Kelby.
Good morning. Thank you. Well, thanks. Well, thanks, everybody, and welcome to this history-making event. You're here at the first ever Google Plus Photographers Conference. We are thrilled that you're here. We're thrilled at the turnout that we had, so thank you for coming. Now, I have to tell you, when you put together a conference like this, we've been working on this for a long time, and when you put work into something like this, you want you guys to get as much out of it as possible. It's as important to us as it is to you that these next 2 days, at the time we spend together, is really great for you. So what I wanted to do is I wanted to go ahead and give you some tips that I think that will help make your experience better. Because if you take this stuff to heart, I guarantee you'll get 100 times more out of this conference than you would have. First thing I want to talk about is interaction. So for this to be an interactive conference, because that's what we said from the very beginning, we want this event to be interactive. We want to get you involved. That's why we added so much photography to the event. That's why we told you to bring your cameras. So we have things set up like live shoots. For example, just outside this room and to your right, have to think left, right, we have a shooting lounge set up. Now, the lounge was set up from our friends at FJ Westcott. They sent us a number of whole lighting setups using continuous lighting. So that way we can have interactive shoots where the instructor starts the class and says, well, let's go ahead and set up. And by the way, we have live models that'll be out there as well. And these are so much better than the dead models we used to have. So we have live models set up there. You'll be able to go with an instructor. They'll basically kind of get the shoot going, and then they turn it over to you. And then you shoot. And you can move the lights. You can do things. You can interact. And that's really important because that's what you want to do in these situations. So we have these shooting lounges. We also have a live location shoot each day. So what we've done is we have a separate location. We'll be shooting a car. We'll be shooting motorcycles. We'll be shooting live models all together on location. Now, we have a bus that takes you there. It's we can take 120 people to the location, and the buses will pick you up right out front, take you to the location, and we'll shoot there. Same thing. The instructors will start by shooting, then they turn it over to you guys to shoot. And we have different venues inside there. It's a very, very large facility where we'll be shooting at. Now, so we can take 120 each day. Now, each day it's the same thing. So don't sign up for today and tomorrow. You'll have the deja vu event. So it's the same thing. So sign up for one day or the other. You do that at registration. There's a form there, and you catch the bus. Now, if you miss the bus, you can still take a cab. But if you want to ride on the free bus, it leaves from here, and they'll have all the details out of registration. So we're taking 120 today and 120 tomorrow as well. All right. Now there'll be other things going on here in the center as well. So if you don't go on the live shoots, there's still other classes going on. But the idea is that you're going to be involved in these shoots. You're not just going to be passively watching them. You're going to be actually involved in shooting as well. So keep that in mind. So when you go to one of these live shoots, always bring your camera. All right. Next is you get to create. You get to create your own experience. That's why we have multiple sessions here. So we have this main room. Just outside the doors, we have the forum. So that's another room that we have where classes will be going on. And this is the biggest room. The next room is a little bit smaller. And then we have one intimate area for teaching that is called the screening room. And it's a very small theater. It only holds 94 people. And any of these, of course, are going to be filled on a first-come, first-served basis. So, for example, my next class, the class right after here, I'm doing a sports photography class. So if you want to come to that class, where I'll be giving away a free copy of Nick Software's complete suite, if you happen to come, there's only 94 seats. So it's right after this. It's a small, intimate gathering. But if you go there and you're that 95th person, there's two other classes going on, one in here and one in the forum as well. Next, we want you to share what you've learned, not just what you've learned here, but what you already know. So tomorrow afternoon, we have a thing called the unconference. So the unconference is where we turn the conference session over to you. You guys make your own agenda. We're going to go, it says that you would go here, but you're actually going to go to the forum. It's a much better setup for that. And you're going to be able to teach what you know and share what you know. So if you know something about lighting, if you know something about social media, if you whatever you want to do, you'll be able to go and sign up on a sheet and describe where you'll be in the room, and people will just come and hang out with you and learn what you have to say. It may be people huddled around a laptop. It may be a lighting setup. Whatever you like, just write your name, what you want to teach, where you're going to be, and we turn the conference for that time over to you. And RC Concepcion also will be doing a special session tomorrow in the on-conference for people who are brand new to G+. So if you're brand new on there and you want to get some questions answered, he is an absolute expert on it. He'll be there, just him and his laptop, just helping you one-on-one. Also, engage. Now, here's the thing. I know that it's very hard to talk to strangers, right? It's very awkward. You're in a different town. There's people from all over the world here. But here's the thing. You could be watching this at home, right? This is being streamed all around the world. You could be watching it. But you chose to come here for the social aspect of it. You came here to be able to want to meet people, right? So this is really one of those things where it's important that you do engage. So the thing is, think about this. When we're on these shoots, that's a great time to meet people. This is why yesterday we had the photo walks. And it's why we had the wine and cheese reception last night, is because I think one of the most important things about a conference like this is meeting people and making new friends. So keep that in mind as you do these things. Collaborate. If you're on a shoot, be the person that grabs the light stand or holds a reflector or does anything to get engaged and get involved with people. Let's see. Lastly, there's the growth part. Because that was kind of our theme about this whole thing. Grow your circles, grow your influence, grow your knowledge, grow your photography skills. But I have a challenge for you. My challenge for you during these couple of days is to never eat alone. Even in your hotel room. No, I'm kidding. No, but never eat alone. Because you know what? Everybody here, came here for that reason. We came here because we didn't want to watch it at home. We wanted to be a part of something special, and we wanted to meet new people and make new friends. Now, I'm just going to ask for just a real quick show of hands. Now, because I think I would just say in general, we all came here because of that. But is there anybody here, and don't be ashamed if it's you, is there anybody here that does not want to meet new people? You're just don't be ashamed if you say, I don't want to talk to anybody. Is there somebody? You should be ashamed. No, I'm just, don't talk to her. Okay, but everybody else, there's nobody here that if you walk up and say, oh, what kind of photography do you do? They're going to go, I'm sorry, I don't want to talk to you. So that's the thing. That's your sentence. That's your opening line for this tour, is to just, while we're here for these next couple of days, just say, oh, what kind of photography do you shoot? I did it 50 times yesterday, the 50 people at my photo walk. So, and it's amazing. Everybody's doing something different. And it's so interesting to hear where they're from, what they're doing, what they're shooting, and all of a sudden you have somebody you've met. Now, once you've met these people, it's your job to make sure they don't eat alone. So you meet them for breakfast, for lunch, things after. We have after-hour things. Make sure that you don't leave here and say, I spent 2 days at a conference full of people. I didn't meet a single person. Also, you know who else is great to meet? The instructors. I handpicked the instructors that are here, and one of the things that I wanted to make sure was that these are the most approachable, most friendly, most passionate people that want to share with you, and people that want to actually meet you. And I know all the instructors. There's nobody here that doesn't want to talk to you. So make sure that you stop the instructors and talk to them as well. All right. I also want to talk to you about being able to interact through the sessions. We have a number of sessions that are panel discussions. And you can actually send us comments for the panel discussions as well. So we found a way for you to interact, create, share, engage, and grow. The interaction part is also important, even if you're not doing a live shoot, for you to be able to interact with what's going on the stage. So we've developed an app for the conference. The app is available for Android and iPhone, and you can download it now. If you haven't downloaded the app, I would download it for a number of reasons. Number one is it cost a ton of money to make that app. Number two is we send you messages through there when sessions change and things. In fact, we have a change I'm going to talk about here in just a moment. But it's where all the news is. But it's also where you can send questions for this keynote and for the rest of the classes. If we have a panel discussion, we're going to have people in Hangouts around the world looking and listening and interacting. We want you to be able to do the same here, and you do that through the app. And let's see, I have a couple more notes here, and then I'm going to turn things over. Here, I want to tell you where to send your questions. So this is the app. So the app itself, it takes 3 buttons to get to where the message is. We wanted to make it work a little while you're here. So you're going to start by clicking the home button. And then you see up in the corner of the home page, there's a little 4 square. Click on that, it takes you to your stream. And then at the bottom left corner, or excuse me, the bottom right corner, you see a little like inbox. Click on that. This is where your messages come in. Buried 3 levels deep, so you'll never find it. But this is where the messages come in. And when a class is live, you'll see the name of the class there. Your comments get streamed up to the stage as they come in, so we can pose your questions to the panel and things as we go along. So it's a way for you to be involved in everything that we do while we're doing it. All righty. Oh, one more thing. Last night at the Wine and Cheese, I almost said Wine and Cheese Festival. The app, where do you get it? Wherever apps come from. The cloud. No. You can, you go to the Google, go to our, oh, by the way, don't send me a note yell out. Just kidding. So go to our conference page, which is, RC will yell the name out to me now. g+pc.com. Go to the conference page. You can download it from there. You can go to the App Store and download it. Search for Google Conference. You'll find it there. So go down. That was easy. We can make this harder, can't we? Thank you, RC. So RC is standing by. He's the Vice President of Information. So when I go blank, RC just yells things to me. All right, so send us your questions there. Last night at the Wine and Cheese Gallery showing, we had a People's Choice Award. So everybody there had already been chosen to have their work displayed in the gallery, and it's people that are here. But we asked for People's Choice, so people could walk around and vote last night on their very favorite pieces. We have a winner and a runner-up, and they both get a prize package from courtesy of our friends at B&H Photo. So our runner-up last night was Richard Camp. So congratulations to Richard. And the winner last night, which gets the grand prize, and this is from the People's Choice. The People's Choice winner was Matt Hernandez. So, all righty, well, I just wanted to kind of get you going with a few things. Keep those things marinating in your mind while you're here, because we really do want you to make the most of this event. But now, it's an honor to be able to turn things over to Google. We'd like you to hear from them. I'll be back in just a little while, but I'd like you to be able to hear directly from the source. So please join me in welcoming the Vice President of Product Marketing for Google, Mr. Bradley Horowitz.
Hi, everybody. Good morning. I can't see you at all. It's very bright up here, but that's okay, because I hear the clicks. I know you're out there. So I want to do a couple things this morning, really 3 things. The first is thank you, which is the most important thing. The second is talk about the past, and then talk a little bit about the future. So first, thank you. You guys have contributed so much to Google+, and have created what I think is the lifeblood of this service. You fill the service with incredible content that makes it come alive, and we are trying to do justice to that by featuring your content in ways that bring it to the audience that can appreciate it most. And you've seen with our new mobile apps, with the iOS app, and we've said soon coming the Android app, a huge prominence on photography, really bringing it to the fore, making things that are beautiful, visceral, touch people, connect with people at an emotional level. And we create the framework for that. We create the app, but you guys pour in all of the beauty, all of the meaning, all of the content. Our service wouldn't be what it is without you, and we're hugely appreciative. Not only myself and the team, but Larry, Sergey, Vic. They're all aware that you're here. They're all grateful to each of you, and we just have a huge debt to this community, in particular, the photography community, that has really helped us and co-developed this service with us, and we're just getting started. So from the bottom of our hearts, a huge thank you, and please give yourselves a round of applause. So I want to talk a little bit about the past, and in particular my past, my favorite topic, me. And it's not because I'm a raving egomaniac, or not just because I'm a raving egomaniac, but because I think it informs how we at Google think about photography and come to this problem with a huge appreciation for what it is that you do. So I'm a geek, computer scientist. I was at the University of Michigan, and while I was an undergraduate, I was a fairly poor student. I wasn't interested in really anything except being on the computers. I loved hacking, I loved building things, and I loved soaking up as much knowledge as I could. And I found a professor who sort of adopted me and became my academic mentor. And his name was Ramesh Jain, and I developed a lifelong friendship with Dr. Jain, which I'll explain further. But his field of expertise was really around computer vision and image processing. And so I was in this lab where some of the world's best researchers in computer vision were doing their research. And as such, I got access to some of the very early imaging systems. and robotic systems. So way back in the mid-'80s, I'm dating myself here, I was an undergraduate and had access to this relatively esoteric for the time equipment that could digitize and the very earliest image processing programs. In fact, one of Dr. Jane's graduate students went off and dropped out of school, and Ramesh tells the story of trying to convince him, you know, yes, every PhD student of mine goes through this crisis of faith. You will get through this. Do not drop out. You're going to ruin your life. Turns out the guy didn't listen to him and did drop out and went on to build Photoshop. It's John Knoll and Tom Knoll who were his graduate students. So sometimes dropping out is the right decision. Larry and Sergey dropped out too. So there was this great competence in imaging at the University of Michigan while I was there, and I developed this great love for trying to understand how to make computers see. And it turns out it's a really complicated and subtle problem to start with an array of pixels, which are really just a matrix of numbers, and try to derive meaning from that. We can glance at that array of pixels and instantly see a scene and appreciate it and render it in our mind into a model and imbue it with meaning. But for a computer, for an algorithm to understand even the basics about the objects in the scene, we don't know how that happens. We don't understand vision. And for relatively about 40 years, the legend in the computer vision field is one of the pioneers of artificial intelligence assigned the problem of computer vision to one of his graduate students as a summer homework assignment. Go figure out computer vision. Now, nobody knows till this day whether or not Marvin himself underestimated the task or if this is simply an effective management technique. Often I send my own team on impossible tasks. Sometimes they surprise you and solve them. But here we are 40 years later, just beginning to scratch the surface of what it means to interpret pixels and understand the world. Eventually, I did graduate from the University of Michigan, and I went on to the MIT Media Lab, which was even more of a playground. It was paradise for those that were interested in this convergence of media and technology. And it was a very special time at the lab. We had teams and groups like the Visible Language Workshop. I myself was at the Vision and Modeling group. And we were really wrestling with these problems of digitization and understanding the world around us. My own research focused on things like fractal image compression and face recognition and recovering non-rigid motion from image sequences, and fairly esoteric algorithmic approaches to understanding the world. But moreover, again, the further I went in the field, the more I appreciated and understood the complexities of human vision. And there were other labs at MIT. The lab next door was called Brain and Cog Science. And what they did is they studied biological vision specifically. They actually stuck electrodes into cats. Ooh, not for me. But they actually measured brainwave activity as they would present images to the cats and tried to understand from the biological approach what happens. You know, the retina is actually a piece of our brain that is exposed to the world. And the complex process by which we understand that world is still mysterious to us. So, got my master's degree, and then that same professor who had been my mentor called me and suggested I drop out of school and start a company with him. And I did. I came from Cambridge, Massachusetts to California, and we started a company. And this, again, is a long time ago. In those days, nobody knew how to spell VC or IPO. You know, this is sort of before this was every 12-year-old's geek's dream. But we managed to start the company, and the company was called Virage, Visual Information Retrieval. And we took some of these same techniques and developed techniques for visual image understanding. And we didn't have the sense to really ask ourselves, is there a market for this? Is this valuable in a commercial sense? But luckily, we found some adult supervision who found a market for this technology and helped us build a business over the course of a number of years. And eventually, that company grew. We took it public on NASDAQ and eventually sold it to a British enterprise search firm, which brought me to the next phase of my career. Having been a graduate student and a dropout and done the startup and taken it public, I thought I should get a real job. And I landed at Yahoo as the head of multimedia search. and thought about this problem of image search. That at that point there were already billions of digital images in the world, but no good way to find them and sort them and utilize them. These images were sort of out there on the net, but did not yet have an audience. They were sort of languishing. And so I thought that was a really deep and interesting problem that meshed well with my own interests and background. And so I came to Yahoo to solve that. And it wasn't long that I was at Yahoo before I bumped into a fascinating, tiny little company up in Vancouver, Canada, called Flickr. And I went to Yahoo's management. Actually, I should roll back. The first time I met with the Flickr founders, Stuart and Katerina, we were having lunch, and they asked me, well, what's your background? What do you do? And I said, oh, computer vision. It's this amazing field, and we're just getting started, and you analyze the pixels and images, and you try to figure out what's in them, and it's really hard. We get it wrong most of the time. We haven't made any progress. It's been 30 years. And they looked at me sort of quizzically and said, why don't you just ask people? I said, what do you mean? They said, just ask people. That's what we do in Flickr. It's called tagging. People just are all too happy to volunteer their knowledge. You know, you can glance at an image and say, that's a church, or that's a dog, or even more important, you can say that's a funny image. And when they use the example of funny or ironic or snarky, I realized that my algorithms were so far from having a snarky detector that, you know, this was a better approach. A little bit of social engineering was better than all the algorithmic approach. And at that point, it was a defining moment in my own career because it introduced this concept of bringing people and community into the equation. That it wasn't just about the algorithms, it wasn't just about the machines, but it was unlocking what people do well and trying to find that right balance, letting algorithms crunch the data, run the numbers, you know, take the data-intensive work and offload it from our brains, but letting people what they do what they do well, interpret, understand, imbue meaning, comment. And so this field of social computing really lit up inside of me. And at that point, I became committed to a new career. I sort of tore up the diplomas I managed to get and embarked upon trying to bring this notion of social computing to the world. And at Yahoo, I went on, after acquiring Flickr and leading that team, I did a number of other efforts around social computing, things like Upcoming and My Blog Log and Jump Cut. And I opened Yahoo Research Berkeley, and I opened what's called Brick House, an incubator that's about 2 blocks from here. And I stayed at Yahoo for a number of years. I really enjoyed my time there. The company treated me very, very well. But eventually I understood I had sort of maxed out on the contribution I was able to make there, and as importantly, what I felt I had to learn there. I had reached a point of diminishing returns. And it was at that point, about 4.5 years ago, that I joined Google and brought this sensibility around bringing social and a huge appreciation for algorithms and what machines do, but an understanding that when that's augmented with people, with community, with heart, it can be so much more. It can be a facilitator for the most meaningful interactions in the world. And you know, when I see the video that played before this conference, I'm stunned as I think about the contribution that you guys have made to our community and the fact that there is a Google Plus community. At this point, you know, we've only been in market for about 10.5 months. A year ago, no one had heard of Google Plus. I'm not even sure if we had decided on the name Google Plus 10.5 months ago. I bet most of you were part of what we called our limited field trial when we launched on June 28th. How many of you were in that very early days here? About a third, I would say, of you guys were connected enough to sort of get that precious invite. And then we didn't open until the public until September of last year. And so this is still a very young and very new service. And yet every day I receive an email summary that highlights what happened that day across the world, across the universe of Google Plus community. Last week, I bet most of you don't know that there was sort of a Hangouts on Air blitz in Brazil. There were 100 live Hangouts on Air happening over the course of one day. Virtually every celebrity and academic and journalist and pundit in Brazil was on a Hangout, hanging out with community and broadcasting that to the world. You know, just another day in the Google Plus world. Maybe you didn't know about that, but certainly Brazil lit up on that day. Yesterday, we won a Webby, the People's Choice Award, which again is the most gratifying thing when we see people connecting and loving our product. There's nothing that we find more gratifying or exciting than to hear from people the connections that they're making, especially things like this conference, which we refer to as a HURL, a hangout in real life, which is great when people get together for a HURL like this. So that's my past, and it sort of brings us up to the modern era of what we're doing in Google+, and why I feel photos are the lifeblood of our service. They're the way that we can most immediately and viscerally connect as human beings, and the contribution that you're making is huge and appreciated. I want to talk just for a few minutes about the future, and I do this not so much representing Google+, but just myself and my own ideas about where I think we have room to improve as an industry and as a species in terms of being able to connect with each other around visual imagery. And I think the first opportunity I would highlight is really around capture. So there are more cameras than ever, and increasingly almost every device has a camera on it. So you certainly can't buy a modern phone without a camera being part of that. And I think one of the opportunities for us is sort of ubiquity. There are so many cameras in this room right now, but those cameras don't benefit from each other. There's not a means for the data to be shared across cameras to think about capturing and sharing data so that each of our photos can get better or more meaningful by dint of communicating to the others. And I know this sounds a little bit esoteric. Let me describe another example, which is some research that was developed while I was at the MIT Media Lab known as the planoptic camera. And that idea is to take a Fresnel lens, basically an insect eye lens, over a fairly large surface of an inch or a couple square inches, and image the world through that lens. Each of the little insect eyes is getting a slightly different view due to the parallax. And because of that, you can actually do great 3D reconstruction of the underlying model. And I knew at the time this was a powerful idea. It was developed by a professor at the lab, Ted Adelson, and one of his graduate students, John Wang. Now, 20 plus years later, this is commercialized in the Lytro camera. It's basically the same technique. And so you're getting true computational photography. It's not just a flat array of pixels that image in one plane, but you're able to reconstruct the 3D model of the world and do all kinds of interesting computational photography after the fact, because you have more than just that one slice of space-time there. You've actually got enough data that you can reconstruct the model and do interesting depth of field effects and even interesting parallax effects because of that. And that's one example of a benefit that you can get from using multiple sensors. Another thing I would like to see improve, and I think this is an immediate opportunity, is to capture more data, more metadata. So as well as the array of pixels, I want to know everything I can about the environment. Now, increasingly, photos are geotagged, so we have sort of that information. But I would also like to know more detailed information about the roll, pitch, yaw of the camera, about the lens optics, about even the sort of blood pressure of the person whose hand is on the camera, or the galvanic skin response. Why do I want that data? Well, imagine a world where we were all wearing cameras. You've heard of Google Glass. I once was at a symposium where, and this again is a long time ago, it's more than a decade ago, the speaker said, "There will come a day when every moment of your life can be digitally recorded and archived forever." And there was sort of a pregnant pause as we took that in. But then he continued and said, "The problem, of course, is that you don't get a second life with which to review the first one." And that is the problem. We are generating so much more content now that the problem of just going back through it and finding those gems that exist in that body of content is becoming harder and harder and harder. So why do I want things like blood pressure and galvanic skin response? Because there are biological signals that help identify moments that I might care about in my life. When I turn the corner and I see the face of my beloved wife, I'm sure my body reacts in all kinds of ways, and a smile lights across my face, and that could be noted, that could be captured. It could be part of the data that helps create that 5 minutes of my day that I might want to review, those moments of importance to me. I'm not going to have time to go back and tag those manually, but I'm constantly giving signal that is lost that could be captured to help me find those moments that are special and meaningful. So I think there's a huge opportunity in capture, both more data, sharing data, more sensors, more dimensions to the data so that it's not just visible frequency, but really capturing the data will allow us to derive all kinds of delightful aftermarket experiences that we can't even conceive of now. So I'm a big fan of improving the capture devices, the cameras, if you will, but I think it's even beyond what we think of cameras today to get more and more metadata. The second part, after we capture this data, I think there's huge opportunity for how the data is synthesized and stored. I think, first of all, we have to get more sophisticated in blurring the distinction between the device and the cloud. We shouldn't even have to worry about that. And, you know, things like iFi nibble at this, but ultimately, every photo I take, every bit of data I generate, of course, should be backed up, archived, made available to me, protected, made safe, as again, there's no telling downstream the value of that data. And I think we can get much more sophisticated about how devices are smart, about how they transmit the data, how selectively they transmit the data, transmitting the high priority data before the low priority data, and making it so that I no longer have to think or worry about security, backup, storage. All of that stuff should just be transparent to me. It should be a quality of the service that I use as opposed to something I have to configure and think about. And I think we're getting there. Synthesizing the data, of course, also means manipulating the data. You guys know that your job isn't finished when you snap the photo. It hasn't even begun. There's so much of the creative process that happens in post-processing, in thinking about how to frame the image, crop the image, improve the image, burn it, dodge it, all of those techniques. And I think what we aspire to do, and I think the opportunity, is to take those techniques which have been very, very esoteric in the purview of the few and create a means to bring them to everyone, but not in a way that forces them to go get a PhD or take too many courses in this, but have a scalable method such that someone who's an amateur photographer can benefit and do so with a few clicks, but someone who is a professional also has the richness of experience to get deeper and do more sophisticated manipulation. So I think today the tools are too segmented. Either they're toys or they're for the pro, and even the pros probably touch about 10% of the possibility within them. And I think we need to improve. I think there's opportunity to take the richness and fullness of the pro tools and make them accessible for everyone. And that's a big part of sort of this middle layer. The final part, and one that I'm extremely excited about, is what happens now. Now that you've created your work of art, your contribution to the world, how does it find an audience? How does that photo reach people and connect with people? And this especially is where I think tools like Google Plus come into play. I think we help these photos find their audience, and that goes for everything from a photo of your baby that you want to share with an intimate group of family members, or a photo of a landscape that you want to have reach the widest possible audience in the world. We have the tools at Google to deal with this information overload problem, to deal with relevancy, to ensure that content reaches its optimal destination and can reach as wide an audience as possible when that's what you want, and as small an audience as possible when that's what you want. And I think we have opportunity to do so in ways that are content considerate. If you look at Google's history, we have a long-standing history of working well within the ecosystem of people who are producing content. Things like AdSense, letting bloggers monetize their content. There's no reason that you have to donate your content into the public purview. That may not be your interest. You might be a professional photographer, and you might want to have a monetary value on your content. And I think that there needs to be invented systems that allow you to share the content you want to share, but reap the value of that content when you want to. And again, Google has a long-standing history of working with content owners to protect their content, to ensure that it's monetized when they want to, and make it accessible to not only would-be viewers, but would-be customers in that transactional sense when that is your intention. And I think as an industry, there's no good solution out there today, and there's nothing but opportunity for people to create content that is later monetized. I think, again, from the lessons I have learned over the years with things like Flickr, the social signal is one of the most important. So the data collection does not end at the camera. It begins anew when that photo is projected into the social environment. And as people plus one it, and as people reshare it, and as people comment on it, there's a secondary amount of data that's created, which in itself is value. You see things like what's hot today. What's hot is sort of a blunt instrument. It's sort of taking globally popular content and bringing it to people, which is great. And I discover incredible things in there that I never would have seen otherwise. But we can be much more sophisticated. We can allow people to connect with the content that's hot for them, whatever that means. As you volunteer your interests and as you connect with more people, we should be able to do a better and better job of bringing content that you care about to your doorstep. So I talked a little bit about my past, and I talked a little bit about my hopes for the future, not just for Google+, but for us as an industry. I can assure you we are working on all of these things at Google. I think our debt to you is such that we want to pay you back by providing the tools that will work best for you, creating something that is really unique in the market, really special, and resonates with your needs as creators of the content that is lighting up our service. And we couldn't be working harder on that mission. The final anecdote I wanted to share, and then we're going to have Scott come out and grill me or ask me a couple questions, and I think we have time for you guys to ask questions too. So if you have any, please use the tool that Scott mentioned to bring them. The anecdote I wanted to share was an experience I had as a teenager. I had a kindly uncle who turned me on to Bob Dylan when I was probably 14 or 15. And I remember listening to, I think it was Blonde on Blonde, his sort of seminal album. And as a 15-year-old, it just blew my mind. I was just like, wow. I'm sitting there in the Midwest, with Brady Bunch sort of around me, and it just blew my mind. I spent hours in the library sort of digging in the Whole Earth catalog and reading everything I could about the counterculture movement of the 60s, and sort of, felt completely disconnected from anyone around me. And I remember at one point I was listening to the song Stuck Inside of Mobile with the Memphis Blues Again. Does anybody know that song? Okay, one other old guy in the audience. I called my mom over, and there's a line in the song where Bob Dylan says, "But he just smoked my eyelids and punched my cigarette." And for some reason, that line was so cool to me. And I called my mom over, and I picked up the needle on the record, and I said, "Mom, listen to this. It's so cool." And I stood there, and, she patted me on the head and said, "That's nice, dear," and sort of strolled off. And it just left me thinking how art is this exchange. It just soared over my mom's head. I couldn't even describe to her why I thought that line of poetry in that song was so cool. She didn't get it. It didn't land. And I came to appreciate in that moment, it sort of sent me into a tailspin of contemplation, that art is really an exchange. It's a connection between people. If you make art in a forest and it doesn't land, if it doesn't connect with someone at some level, it's wasted. And I felt huge appreciation for the genius of Bob Dylan that could create this work of art. But I felt huge appreciation for myself for receiving it, just being able to get it in a way that my mom wasn't interested in doing or able to do. And that's what I think is most exciting about a service like Google+, is this opportunity to help the art find its audience, to connect creators with people who will appreciate them, and I guess, like the video said, offer constructive criticism as well, but to put that art in a place where it lands and moves people, connects with people or provokes people, creates this visceral opportunity for connection and exchange. And we at Google think that Google should be more than just about connecting keywords to web pages. That's a pretty impoverished connection, and our mission is much greater than that. We're about connecting people to people. And I know of no better means of doing that than the art and content that you guys are creating. So again, thank you, and I'd like to invite Scott up here to grill me with some questions.
All righty, in the final 15 minutes that we have together before we break for class, I have a couple of questions that we're getting questions streaming in right now. Wow, we are getting questions streaming in. And I also have a couple of questions that I want to ask you if you're all right. So first, so many photographers have gravitated towards Google+. I mean, it's been an explosive the way. I've never seen anything like it to where everybody just, boom, came here at once. I know that photographers have really become deeply involved in it. What is your personal take on why has it become so wildly popular? Well, not just with photographers, by the way.
Yeah.
I mean, we can look at the bigger picture, because I can give you my reasons why I think it's popular with photographers. I remember the first time I saw it, the one thing that caught, and this is going to sound silly, but when I looked at it for the first time and I saw how big the images were without having to click on the photo, I was like, this is for me, because I've been looking at thumbnails forever. Right. So
I don't think that's silly at all. I think what we wanted to do was make the content the hero. And if you've seen our mobile app, if you've seen the iOS app that's in market now,
right, the new UI.
The new UI, that's what it does. It really brings the content to the fore and gives it the seat and the respect that we think it's due. And I think that philosophy resonates throughout our product. We try to recede a lot of the product into the background and just create a stage like this for the content to shine and reach people. And I think that's one of the reasons why photographers felt that we had a service that respected what they did and not only helped them reach audience, but put their content first.
You know, you're so right. I hadn't thought of it in those terms, but I remember the first time I could see XF data from a photograph. I mean, it's like, who cares about XF data but us? We're the only people in the world. And
Google
by the way,
does.
Yeah. Oh, you guys do, and that's when I saw it there. I was like, what I would say about XF data is, so if I look at your picture, you post a picture, I look and I see that you shot it at f8 at 1/250th of a second, I don't go, now I've got it. I'm going to go get that shot. I'm going to go there, f8, 250, think, ooh, it looks different. I'm not at the Grand Canyon. But anyway, but you know what that showed me from the very beginning? That you care.
Yeah.
Because you know we actually care. You know, I want to know what lens. I want to know what body it was. I want to know what ISO it was at. So when I saw that, I was like, ooh, I don't know if you designed it for photographers, but I'll guarantee you there's some photographers in the engineering team.
Well, absolutely. I think that's another reason is we are photographers ourselves. I mean, we are geeks, and, you know, photography geeks are a sub-flavor of geeks, and there's a lot of them at Google, and a lot of them on the Google Plus team. And, you know, it's not like we have to go out and research these things. We are users of our own product, and we understand the value in sort of the improvements that we're making. So it's a big part of it is eating our own dog food and being in the community, not just observing the community.
You know, it's funny you say that, because so many times we'll sit there and look at some product and we'll go, do they even use this product? You know, but you guys, the way you've rolled out changes and you've been so responsive, and in the short time that Google Pluses have been around, how many things you've added. So what is your plan for, like, how do you roll things out? What's your philosophy on how you roll things out?
So let me share this with you, because I think it's an important point. We do use our product and we learn a lot from that, but all of us are smarter than some of us or any of us. And we absolutely depend on your feedback. Even if it's the 1,000th time we've heard that we ought to do this different, that's important, because this other thing, we've heard it 10,000 times, and this one 20,000 times. So the contributions you make, even if you think they must be fixing this or must know to fix this by now, there's so much opportunity ahead of us. Understanding how to weave through it and navigate, we're really dependent on this dialogue that we have with the community. I think that is how we build product at Google, and how we build product at Google Plus is in dialogue with the community, instead of just sort of navel-gazing and sort of thinking about what would be, you know, great next. We have this product that lets us listen in an unprecedented way. And I think we've developed a core competency in acting with velocity. You know, at one point, I realized it was earlier this year, we had sort of wanted to, having been at a startup, I wanted to have all the sort of impact of a big company, but the speed and nimbleness of a startup. And what I realized is we had leapt way over that. We had all of the impact of a big company, but because of our process, because of our scale, we were like a hive of interconnected startups that were sort of multiplying off each other. And I think this is a really unusual team and team structure that we have in Google Plus that has allowed us to create something special. And, you know, it's cliche, but we really are just getting started. It's easy to forget how new the service is, and we have so much we're excited to share with you. Not today.
Okay. Hey, I'm going to ask you another question here, but I want to grab the iPad here and take a look at some of the questions that are coming in. So I'm going to be looking at questions while you answer this next one. But
okay.
you have Picasa and you have Google+.
I'm used to people not paying attention to me while I talk.
Oh, excellent. Are you in meetings where people are like checking their email? And
well,
like,
you know, the Google Glass thing has some interesting social implications. So
yes, it does.
I never know whether Vic is listening or not.
So I'm going to look at these real quick. But my question to you is, you have Picasa, you have Google+. Which are we supposed to use?
The answer is yes. That's you know, I think ultimately the brand distinctions between those do need to melt away, and I think it's even broader than Picasa and Google+. We have other places users can put images. What about if your images are emailed to you and you're a Gmail user? What about Google Drive is now a place where you could put images? Of course, I take images on my Android phone. I don't think there need to exist seams between these experiences. In fact, we're working hard to erase the seams of these experiences so you just have a seamless, coherent experience with your content on Google and across the internet. And that's the goal. So the fact that you have to ask that question is a failing on our part and one we're working really hard to fix.
All righty. Well, I have a follow-up question that just came in from Christian Cable. Christian asks, you talked about making better tools for photographers. Does Google have any plans to bring Picasa up to the level of like a Lightroom or Photoshop?
So ultimately, yes. Again, I have no specific product announcements today, but the vision I talked about, I don't think that those tools should be the purview of those that can afford them or think they need them. I think those tools should scale seamlessly from the casual user who might use one or two features and do so with a simple click to the professional, all the way up to the professional user who wants a tool that will allow them to create content people would pay for. So aspirationally, yes. You know, no specific product announcements today, but that is certainly something that is in our purview.
I had another one I wanted to ask you about here that was kind of along those lines. Now, a lot of these that I'm seeing come in here today are very specific, like John Mason asked, you know, the implements black bars on photos, when can that be changed to white? So there's a bunch of these that they're asking very specific stuff. So rather than dive into these, and like you said, you hear thousands of, where can people give their feedback to you? So, because I think that's very specific type of stuff where, and by the way, when are we getting the background changed? No, you can tell me that later.
Okay.
But where can we go? Like for the photographers, where can we go to say, you know what would make this one step better?
Okay, so there's a couple things you can do. One is almost every page in the site has a send feedback link. We get huge amounts of feedback through that, and all of it is processed. So none of that is lost, it's not wasted. Another thing you can do is shout at us in the product itself. You can plus mention me or Vic or Brian Rose or other team members who are prominent in the service, and you know, make sure you're heard that way. You know, that specific feedback we are aware of. We have heard that. One of the things you guys should know is, as well as being a great service for photographers, we're a great service for humanity. There's a lot of other parts of Google+, from Hangouts to posting, to bloggers who've adopted our service to reach their audience in the written word, to people that are sharing intimately in the service. So we have an ocean of opportunity before us, and again, we need to thread that. So even things that appear simple and, you know, why don't you guys just fix this is driving me crazy, we have to stack rank and prioritize that in the context of all the other opportunity and bugs that we have. And so as fast as this team is, sometimes I know it's frustrating for those on the outside who don't have the full purview of our process. Hopefully, if you were in the room when these decisions were being made, you'd come to the same conclusions that we are. But we will get to them. And it's not that we've become tone deaf. It's just that we're threading that needle through all the opportunity. And again, I think a lot of this will become clearer to you all through the course of the rest of the year as we launch some of the exciting new features that we have. You'll see that we haven't been asleep at the wheel. We've been working very hard on stuff you're going to love.
Okay, how about this one? There's no ads in the photo light box. There's no ads really on Google Plus over. How long can we hope that will last?
I think our philosophy around ads is that they can be a very useful part of the user experience, to wit, search, right? When I type in Hawaii vacation, actually putting things in front of me that help me get on that beach is not a disservice. It's contextual. I asked for it. Now, within the context of Google+, especially photo sharing, if I'm looking at a picture of my daughters, the last thing you want to do is sort of stick an ad between that intimate moment and that intimate interaction. There is no ad you could place between me and my daughters that I would find useful or relevant. Even if it's targeted to me, I'm interested in Bob Dylan, not now. I'm trying to see my daughters, And so I think the magic of Google, the opportunity that we have is this notion of context. So if I review a restaurant, instead of spraying that to 2,000 quote-unquote friends or followers, what Google can do is take that valuable information and tuck it away and bring it back to light in the moment of value to the receiver. So for instance, if 6 months from now my friend types in Yerba Buena restaurant and suddenly Bradley recommends Samovar Tea Lounge comes up there, that's no longer noise. I didn't interrupt them. That's a gift. That's a gift from me to that person, facilitated by Google, because it's in context. It's time shifted to the moment of relevance. And so we can take the content that people are creating and bring it to the moment of usefulness via relevance. And that's our approach towards ads, not to sort of monetize our product by sort of spraying it with ads all over the place, but to really think of how can the information that's being collected be of service to users? And when ads are useful, we'll show them, but we have not yet figured out a way in the context of the Lightbox to make ads useful and relevant. And so we're not going to sort of impose them upon our users just for the sake of monetizing.
But what
Round of applause, please. Thank you.
I was going to say, but what if you do find a way to no, I'm just kidding.
So, well, if we did find a way, I would like to keep that opening. If we found a way that they were genuinely useful, and we have ways of measuring satisfaction and utility, and it could be that some ads are useful. For instance, if I'm looking at a beach or something like that, and I go, wow, white sand beach with this beautiful thing, I would love to figure out a way to find out what resort that is. Maybe there's a way to sort of connect in a transactional way, me to the owner of that resort, pursuant to the intentions of the photographer. Maybe the photographer doesn't want me leaping off. Maybe the photographer doesn't care. Maybe the photographer gets a bounty. Who knows? I think it's important to keep things open. I think I've run into trouble saying we would never, we should never. The world is too mysterious and vast to sort of limit ourselves in that way. But I think what's important is you understand our philosophy is we don't think of ads as punishments that users must endure. We think of ads done well as something users would cry about if we took them away. And so we want to get to that level of value in the ads, and then it's worth having a conversation.
All right. Well, we only have time for one more question. But before we do, I just want to say it's not too late for you to run for office. Because that answer was stunning. Seriously. Because it's like you kind of said ads are coming, but I'm happy with it. So
I didn't say that, actually.
No, you didn't say that.
I didn't say
that. You implied that if it's right, it may happen.
Look, we think in
No, I'm not calling you on. I'm just messing with you.
Okay.
All right. Last one, and I got to have one important thing to tell the audience before we go. But somebody asked, and this is what I'm curious about, when will we have an iPad app, an app, full-size app, not just for the mobile phone, but for like the tablets? Because I wonder if this... So, is it you just want us to go on a web browser?
We've noticed that there's demand for that. This is not a new idea. And
You're good, seriously. We should have started this a long time
generally,
ago.
when we see a market opportunity like that, we seize upon it. And so, obviously we have no resistance to iOS. You saw us release our beautiful new mobile app on iOS first.
Yeah,
so,
the UI is sweet. It says, everybody else, don't worry, this is for photographers.
So again, I know you guys hate this answer, but I have nothing to announce regarding iPad today, but I would watch that space. Stay tuned.
But I like the way he said today, because that kind of does leave it open. We have nothing to announce today.
Exactly.
Because you didn't say it's not coming.
I didn't say that.
So I have hope.
Okay.
All right. Hey, Bradley,
Cool.
thank you so much.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
That's cool. All right, we have an important change. We have one important change in the class schedule today. Because of the way we're broadcasting certain things, we had to move a couple things around. So we have a schedule change. So today, we have a class from Peter Hurley, The Art of the Headshot. Peter is brilliant. If you have not had a chance to see him, you will learn. I guarantee you will walk out of that class, your photography will be better. Peter's class, The Art of the Headshot, is now at 11:30 here in the theater. So we switched that with the G Plus tips panel, which actually comes from Google themselves. So they've got some stuff. We were on a conference call talking about some of the tips, and I'm like, I feel like I'm on Google Plus like, half the day. And they had all kinds of stuff I'd never heard of. So 2 great classes. They've just switched. Peter Hurley's at 11:30 here in the theater, and the G Plus Tips and Tricks panel will be at 5:30 in here today. All right, one last thing. Thank you, guys. Thank you for being a part of history coming here today. We'll see you in class.